Hello! In this video, I'm going to explain the 7 major character archetypes that we're going to be looking at in my class. Many people would argue for more than 7 archetypes, but these are just some of the most common ones that you'll see in a lot of movies, books, all kinds of stories, TV shows, whatever it is. This isn't comprehensive. This isn't every archetype that ever could exist or ever has existed, but these are the most common types of characters that you're going to see in things, and they're going to be the 7 that we're going to be talking about specifically in my class. First of all, though, what is an archetype? It's essentially a typical example of something. A person, a thing, a position, a role somebody has, the way that somebody interacts with somebody else or something else. It's an original kind of thing that's imitated many times. You might also think of it as a template for how something might exist or operate. An example would be that Lord of the Rings is an archetype of fantasy. Okay, so a lot of fantasy writers today will want to imitate Lord of the Rings and will sometimes even do it without trying to, because it's so famous, so popular, so well done, so influential that it sets the scene and sets the standard for what every other thing of its kind will be like. So, Lord of the Rings is an archetype of fantasy in that it is a kind of fantasy story that many other fantasy pieces will try and emulate or imitate or be like. You could say George Washington was an archetypal president. He did things and had an attitude and a way about him that every other president since has tried to emulate, more or less. You could also say that about Abraham Lincoln, who was an even better president than George Washington, primarily because he didn't own slaves. But these are archetypal presidents. They're the kinds of presidents that other presidents want to imitate. So when we look at literature, archetypes are going to be like literary blueprints, like templates for writers to create certain kinds of characters, or for writers to create kinds of characters without realizing that they're falling into the same blueprints. So when you're writing a story, you're not going to reinvent types of characters. You're not going to come up with something that's totally original. Basically, it's all been done before, whether you know it or not. And even the books you read that are great, that you think are so original, a lot of them are doing things that have been done many, many times before they were written. And that's okay. That's normal. These are patterns of writing that authors have used and therefore readers have recognized for thousands of years, things that are very familiar to us because it's just how stories work. If you can identify the archetype that a character falls into, usually it'll be easier for you to understand how different characters relate to each other, how different events are unfolding, and even make predictions about what's coming next based on how certain archetypes have to function, how they follow their own rules. There are certain rules we're going to look at for each archetype. So, we're going to look at definitions, rules, and examples of each of the 7 key character archetypes in literature. The first one is the hero. Every story has a hero. The definition of a hero is the protagonist. I'm sure you've heard this word before. It basically is the main character. It's the person who has to overcome difficulties and obstacles and figure things out either to save themselves or their world, which could be the world, or it could be the people in their world, their sphere of life that they live in, but they're trying to save and redeem something, or they're trying to get something back, or there's a change that they need to make, either something big or something big to them. Some rules for heroes would be, number 1, the lack rule, which means that every hero starts with a missing piece. Our example, as you see in the top right, is Guy Montag. In Fahrenheit 451, he lacks happiness. Clarice says, "Are you happy?" And he realizes, I guess I'm not, okay? So everybody has this missing piece. Every hero has a missing piece at the beginning of the book. There's the refusal that comes next. Okay, they hesitate, they make excuses, they doubt whether or not they are actually able to handle the problem. They don't actually want to pursue it right away. For Guy Montag, it's very brief. He says, "What does she mean? What does she think? I'm not happy? Of course I'm happy." Then he realizes, "Oh no, I'm not happy," and then he has to handle that. But at first he refuses to address it. Then there's the crossing, which is where they have to fully commit. It's like crossing a line in a sand. They step over this line and they can't go back. So the line in the sand for Montag is stealing books, right? And deciding, I'm going to take this book and I'm going to hide it and I'm going to keep it, right? He leaves this safe zone where he could turn back, and he enters some kind of danger zone where he can't ever turn back. Number 4, the ordeal. This is something every hero faces. It's where they have to face their big fear or their difficult choice or their enemy or whatever it is, and they have to do it alone. It's all on them, and this happens to every hero in every story where they have to face this head on. It's usually called the climax of the story. And then at the end, rebirth. Their identity will change, their belief system, their values, things like that will have to change for them, and they'll kind of become a new version of themselves, either right before the ordeal or after the ordeal. That comes at different points for each character, but in order to survive, or perhaps because they survived or won, things change for them. That's the hero, okay? And Montag's our example. The next one is called the villain, often called the shadow, and I actually prefer the term shadow because villain makes people just think of doing bad stuff, and this archetype is more than just doing bad stuff. Our definition is going to be the primary antagonist. The hero was the protagonist. The villain, or the shadow, is the antagonist, and this is who represents what we might call the dark side of the hero. The rules are, number 1, the mirror, some people would call it. So our example will be Captain Beatty if we're sticking with Fahrenheit 451. Captain Beatty shares similar traits with the hero. They're both firemen. They've both been doing it a long time. But the villain, or the shadow, he uses the same kind of traits for selfish reasons. So they're similar to the hero. At least that's what makes a lot of really interesting villains, is that they've got something in common with the hero, whether they like it or not, whether the hero likes it or not. The justification. The villain truly believes that what they're doing is the right thing to do. Right? The most popular example of this is Thanos in Avengers Endgame, and the other one, Infinity War, where he says, I'm going to snap my fingers, I'm going to kill half of all life in all of the universe all at once. And he does it, and he says, we're overpopulated, so we got to kill half the people, right? And he truly believes that that is the right thing to do. I think a simple conversation would be, why don't you just snap your fingers and double the resources, maybe? But he doesn't think about that. He truly believes that what he's doing, murdering half of all life, is the good thing. Number 3, the pressure. The villain will specifically exploit the unique weaknesses or secrets of the other characters. Thanos is great at this. Captain Beatty is great at this, right? We know that he can tell Montag is nervous. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's afraid. And so Beatty will poke at him in little ways and kind of nudge him. Hey, I heard a fireman over in the next county set a hound to his own chemical complex and killed himself. What kind of suicide do you call that, right? Some kind of comment like that. And so he's just kind of nudging him, maybe not coming right out and saying it, but being very subtle, showing that he's more intelligent than Montag, showing him that he understands more than Montag, because all Montag wants to do is understand. So that weakness is exploited by Captain Beatty. Number 4, the final stand. This represents something that can't just be reasoned with, right? That's who the villain is. They represent a force that can't be reasoned with, because no matter what Montag says to Beatty, he's not going to change. He's not going to stop being who he is. He's going to keep being this fire captain. He's going to keep being the happiness boys, okay? He's not going to change his mind. And number 5, the warning. The villain represents what the hero could become if they make the wrong choice, right? The most obvious example of this is Darth Vader. Luke could decide to go the way of his father Anakin and say, I'm going to embrace the dark side of the Force, and I'm going to become another Darth Vader. Sure. Or he could make different choices and be a good guy, like he does. Same with Montag. If he made a certain number of choices, or if he made certain choices, then he would do what happens in the book. But if he made some slightly different choices, he could have become like Captain Beatty and really believed in everything that the firemen stood for, even knowing their dark, complex history. So Luke could become another Darth Vader. Montag could become another Captain Beatty. I've spent a lot of time on these first two because they're important, but we're going to go a little more quickly for the rest of them. The ally. This is somebody who sticks around the heroes, their companion, their sidekick kind of, and they've always got a skill that the hero doesn't have. So some rules if we consider Joanna Vilkas from Salt to the Sea. This person has a skill that the hero lacks. If you call Florian the hero, Joanna's got some medical knowledge that helps people when they're struggling or injured. There's the reality check. They challenge the hero whenever they're being irrational or reckless. Joanna is not afraid to call Florian out on the things he's doing that are foolish and question him. The test of loyalty, there's always a moment, almost always, where the ally has to make a choice between abandoning the hero and sticking with the hero and staying as their ally or friend or sidekick. It usually will be way easier to abandon them, but they hopefully choose not to. The best example is Samwise Gamgee in the movie of Lord of the Rings. Movies, I should say. We don't see a lot of this in Joanna. I mean, you could say every moment is one of those, but this is a key rule of the ally. But, of course, it doesn't always happen. I don't see it quite so heavily in the books of Lord of the Rings, so it's not a hard rule. None of these rules are super hard rules. They're kind of soft rules where they usually happen, but these are more like guidelines for how to identify certain archetypes. Number 4, the shield. Usually the ally will take a big hit, either a physical hit, they'll get injured, or some kind of emotional sacrifice to protect the hero or the mission. You could say that Black Widow in Endgame or Infinity War, I forget which one, is an ally to the rest of the Avengers because she takes this big hit by sacrificing herself to get one of those Infinity Stones for everybody. And she really takes a big hit for that one. So does Hawkeye, because he really cares about her. Anyways, next up is the mentor. The definition is a teacher or guide who helps the hero prepare for the journey, and you'll probably recognize that most of these center around the hero. That's why they're the main character, right? The shadow is the person creating obstacles for the hero. The ally is a friend of the hero. The mentor is a guide for the hero. It all centers around the hero. Here are the rules for the mentor. One example is the shoe poet in Salt of the Sea, or even Faber in Fahrenheit 451, right? But they provide a tool, they provide secret knowledge, they provide survival training, some kind of guidance to the main character. They are the conscience of the main character a lot of the time because the main character won't know what to do or how to move forward. So the mentor will tell them, well, here's what you need to do. Don't give up. You got this. I believe in you. Here's what you need to do to continue. Here's how you need to think. Here's what you need. And so they'll help them understand those things. Usually, the mentor also has a mysterious past, some kind of conflict, some loss, or just some complicated history that they don't know a lot about. Another Star Wars example is Ben Kenobi. We don't know a lot about him. Of course, we learn about Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequels, but he's got this mysterious past before he starts helping Luke, and we don't really know who he is, but he gives him a lightsaber, he gives him all kinds of stuff. The departure, of course. The mentor must be removed from the hero's life in order for the hero to grow and fulfill their purpose. The shoe poet leaves the main characters very close to the end of the book, so sorry if that's a spoiler. Ben Kenobi doesn't stick with Luke the whole time. Obi-Wan doesn't stick with Anakin, right? They have to part ways. You could also say the prequels are an Obi-Wan story, and especially in the If They Were Good videos. But Qui-Gon is Obi-Wan's mentor, and he dies in Episode 1 of Star Wars. But next rule, we got to go quick here. The sacrifice, usually the mentor will have to risk their own safety in order to give the hero a chance to escape. Again, Qui-Gon, fighting Darth Maul, brutal scene when he sacrifices himself to well, he doesn't really sacrifice himself. He just loses in the fight. But he's not willing to back down from that sacrifice. Number 5, the Herald. Remember, Herald, Herald, different than Harold, which is a name. A herald is someone who brings news, right? It's the character or even an event. It's not always a person, which is interesting. This archetype is not always a human or something of the same race as the hero. I'm saying that because if you're writing sci-fi, maybe there's some kind of alien race who's interacting. Not talking about skin color here, although it could be. The character or event that issues the call to adventure, right? In Salt to the Sea, the adventure all begins because the Russians are invading Europe and taking over Nazi-occupied Europe. And so that's really an event. It's not a person who does this. Okay, so an example in Fahrenheit 451 again would be Clarice McClellan. Right? She's the one who says, Montag, are you happy? She asks that question, and Montag meeting her and realizing, wow, she's different from the rest of the world. That's what kicks things off. They give news or event or some kind of thought in this case that changes the hero's world forever. Clarice changes Montag's life forever when she just says, are you happy? And she gets to know him, and he gets to know her and how she's weird and eccentric and doesn't make any sense in this strange world they live in. Number 2, their appearance usually is the point of no return. So the hero, he has this big step he has to take. He has to step across a line in the sand. And usually the herald is part of what initiates that, or is that very thing itself. Right? So you could say that the herald in Fahrenheit 451 is Clarice McClellan. You could also say the herald is Montag finding that his hands have grabbed a book and shoved it into the armpit of his fireman outfit coat thing, and he says he didn't do a thing. It was just his hands did it all by themselves. So it could be either one of those things that you could call a herald. The motivator. The herald usually will provide the why in the story. So this is the reason that the hero has to do whatever they're doing, whatever move they make to make the story go on. That's what the herald provides. Number 4, the reappearance. Usually they show up once, they get the story going, and they disappear. But then usually they reappear later in the book, and that's when the plot shifts all over again. Okay. Now in Salt to the Sea that I've been talking about, that doesn't really happen. The Russians, they're there the whole time. They don't really disappear and reappear. You might say they pop up again here and there. Maybe you could say they reappear when the characters are crossing the Vistula Lagoon, and that'd be significant. Or, Clarice might reappear in Montag's memory in a few ways, which she kind of does, but she herself doesn't actually reappear in Fahrenheit 451. So that rule is quite loose. Number 6, the Guardian. Now, an important note for the Guardian is that this person or thing or whatever it is not protecting the hero. A lot of people confuse this and they say, in The Book Thief, for example, Liesl Meminger's dad, or her papa, her adopted foster father, right, is the guardian because he takes care of her and protects her. That is not what the guardian is about. You might think of the guardian more as the guard or the gatekeeper, right? Also G words. But they are the guard. They're guarding something. They're guarding the gate to something. Okay. The definition here is going to be that it's a test that blocks the hero's path to see if they are ready. So they'll sometimes be a literal guardian where they're standing in front of a door and the character comes up, can't get through the door. Okay, so the hero's not ready. They have to go and learn some skill or some secret or get some tool or something like that, and then come back later once they're ready, and then they can get past the guardian and through their door or whatever. So some tests, they're going to block a literal or metaphorical door. It might not actually be a door to walk through, but for the example in Fahrenheit 451, it's more of Montag's understanding in his mind. For if we're using the mechanical hound as an example of a guardian, the mechanical hound keeps Montag from feeling comfortable in the firehouse. Also the neutrality. Right? There's something neutral about the Guardians. They're usually not against the protagonist or really even for the protagonist. They're just doing their job. They're guarding the door. They're keeping a secret, whatever it is. Number 3, the skill check. There's usually only one way that the hero can cross the Guardian and get the objective on the other side of the Guardian. And they need that skill, that lesson, that truth, whatever it is, to get past the Guardian. And once they're past that Guardian, that's one step on the way to their larger purpose. The hero's larger purpose, that is. Number 4, the conversion. The Guardians sometimes can become an ally if the hero proves their worth in the right way. And so then the Guardian says, oh, you've passed my test, and now I will join you. Okay. The Mechanical Hound, of course, does not do this, right? Ultimately, the Mechanical Hound is a tough one because it's like the guardian to the space of the firehouse. It's a guardian to the freedom of living with books and things like that. And so you could also call it the shadow sort of. The Mechanical Hound's hard, right? This one's hard for Fahrenheit, but anyways. Number 7, the last one, is the Shapeshifter, and this one's probably the easiest one to identify other than the hero. But the definition is a character whose true loyalty is hidden or it's constantly changing. So basically, you don't know whose side they're on. So here are the rules. Alfred Frick is a good example of this. The Mask. Their initial appearance or personality hides their true motives. Okay? You could also say Mildred in Fahrenheit 451. You don't know. Is she going to take Montag's side? Is she going to take the side of comfort in society? I keep returning to that book because I like it more. Alfred Frick, you don't know if he's like a good guy, a bad guy. You don't really know much about him. He's a weird puzzle you have to figure out throughout the book. Number 2, the uncertainty. The shapeshifter usually causes the hero to wonder whether or not they can trust this shapeshifter. If there's a character in a book or a movie and you're thinking, can we trust them? Do I know whose side they're on? I actually have no idea. Then that's usually a good sign that they are the shapeshifter archetype. And that lets you figure out that there's going to be some kind of deepening of the hero through them. That's rule 3. The catalyst of doubt, you're going to say, well, if this person's a shapeshifter, they're probably going to force the hero to look deeper than appearances. They're going to force the hero to really investigate and either find out if this shapeshifter person is on their side or not. Okay? Number 4, the reveal. In every story, when there's a shapeshifter who's either maybe good guy, maybe bad guy, they'll change their shape, if you will, right? They'll change their loyalty at a very critical moment, and you're shocked usually, and you say, "Oh man, I really thought you were going to be on this other side," or you'll totally call it. But you never know. You never know which side they're on, and so that's what's beautiful about the shapeshifter is that once the reveal happens, it's always a surprise because you're so unsure for the whole book. Some might say, "Yeah, never mind." Number 5, the secret. The shapeshifter always carries some hidden truth, of course, some secret. There's the answer to their loyalty, or there's some other secret that changes how you would see them and changes how everybody would see them. So, hero, villain, ally, mentor, herald, guardian, shapeshifter. Okay, those are the 7 key character archetypes we're going to be talking about in my class. And so, what we're going to do real quick is note, first of all, these are about roles, not just people. It's not just this kind of person is this role. It's not like this evil person who's doing evil things has to be the villain. In fact, the rules about a villain have nothing to do with being evil. They're mostly just creating problems for the hero. Also, a character can change archetypes. A guardian can become an ally. A guardian can become a shadow. They can go all over the place. A guardian can be a shapeshifter. A mentor could even be a shapeshifter. Whatever it is. They can even be multiple archetypes at once, right? Because relationships are complicated. It doesn't just have to be one-dimensional. So your job, as you read your independent reading books, right now we're on independent reading book 7 as I'm making this video, so it could be that one. But as you read your books, watch your movies, listen to your audio dramas, whatever it is, watch your plays, look for example of the rules, okay? Look out for those rules. And if your story has a mentor, start looking for the gift that they give the hero. If you think that somebody is a shapeshifter, start looking for the mask. Try and figure out what exactly they're hiding, okay? Let's try it. Let's look at a few characters and see if you can identify who they are, what their archetype is. We'll start with Yoda. This should be an easy one. Also known as Master Yoda is what they call him. Okay, and if you couldn't guess it, he is the mentor, right? He gives a gift to Luke, special training on the Force. He teaches him how to be a Jedi, really. Luke abandons him too quickly and doesn't learn all that he could have, but things turned out in the end, so that's all right. So that one was easy. Spider-Man. In the Spider-Man movies, it's of course named after him. He's the hero. Alongside him, of course, is Iron Man. Which, if you've seen the movie, you also know that Iron Man gives Peter Parker his suit. That's the gift. He teaches him a lot of lessons. He's the moral compass. He teaches him all kinds of stuff. If you're nothing without the suit, you don't deserve to have it. He teaches him what he should value. So he is the mentor, right? That might have been obvious. How about Spider-Man getting bit by a spider in the Tobey Maguire series? This being bit by a spider, that's not even a character. And the fact that it's not a character, and I'm asking you about it, might give it away that it's the Herald. This is the thing that really kickstarts the adventure. If Peter Parker had not been bit by the spider, there'd be no Spider-Man, there'd be no story. Gollum or Smeagol, right? The fact that I just called him 2 names might give it away. He, of course, is helping the hobbits, but he's also loyal to the ring. He has loyalty to Frodo as the ring bearer. He doesn't really know. He kind of goes back and forth. You're wondering whether or not he's going to be helpful or evil. If my hints haven't given it away already, hopefully you know. He is a shapeshifter. You don't know his true shape, his true allegiance. Thanos. This one is pretty obvious if you've seen the movies, right? He's killing half of all life in the universe, and he thinks it's okay to do it. He's the villain, right? He's the shadow, if you will. He's what the good guys could become if they're not careful, because Civil War, right? They all split over whether or not they could justify their own ends, whether or not they needed to be kept in check and just do whatever they think is right without consequence. That's what Thanos believes. That's what Captain America actually wanted. He says, we got to be able to operate independently without someone keeping us in check. And Iron Man said, no, we need some kind of accountability. Thanos is the ultimate end of Captain America's ideas, where he says, no, I'm going to do what I think is right no matter what anyone else says. Nobody can keep me in check because I'm too powerful, right? So he is the shadow of Captain America, in a way. Donkey! Right? What is he? What is he? I'll just let you think about this one for a minute. No, he's not the shadow of Shrek. He's the ally. He helps. He's the comic relief. A lot of allies are comic relief. But he, he's got some people skills. He kind of stumbles into things and makes things happen in ways that Shrek wouldn't be able to do just on his own. Severus Snape. He is a great example of his archetype. He is probably, definitely my favorite character in all of Harry Potter. The first time I watched the movies, which was before I read the books, he was interesting to me, and I liked him the whole time. And then when I finally finished the last movie, I thought, I knew it. I knew there was something about him, and I was glad that I liked him the whole time. He, of course, is the shapeshifter. You wonder the whole time if he's on Dumbledore's side or Voldemort's side, and so it's tough to figure out, and you don't know. You really don't know as you read through the books for the first time. And if my explanation of my experience didn't give it away, go ahead and read the books or watch the movies. I recommend reading the books. I listened to them on audiobook. Great books, fun story, great character. Also Harry Potter, right? We got Cerberus, the 3-headed dog. Of course, in the first movie, this dog is standing on top of a door that leads down into a dungeon, troll dungeon, I don't know, basement, chamber, I don't know what to call it, but it's guarding the way to the Sorcerer's Stone. And so the kids have to figure out how to get past this 3-headed dog in order to get down there. It, of course, is the guardian. The 3-headed dog is guarding something, a place, and therefore it is a guardian. So it's not really a character. It's just an obstacle. It's a wall in the way. So remember, that's what a guardian is. It's not about keeping people safe or anything like that. It's guarding the way to something. Han Solo. This one's going to be tough, right? Depending on how you view Han Solo, depending on how you interpret the Star Wars movies, you might take Han Solo in different directions. I would call him a reluctant hero because he is a guy who's got this whole mission, right? But I also would call him an ally. Oop, I thought it was going to pop up on the side there. I'd call him an ally because he's helping Luke, right? He's the driver for Luke. He drives him around, and so he's reluctant to do things, but he still has some things he needs to accomplish. He's got his own interesting character arc, and he's kind of got his own ally of Chewbacca, who's got skills he doesn't have. Chewbacca can fix stuff better than he can, but Han also he can get Luke places that Luke can't go. So he's got a skill Luke doesn't have called the Millennium Falcon. It's really just a piece of property he owns, but he can drive a ship. And so he's kind of the hero. He's an ally. I might call him more of an ally. This is why it's hard. And again, these archetypes are fluid. They're not super strict and rigid. Next up is the genie, right? And based on my description of Han Solo just now, you might have an idea that he's some kind of mentor or ally again, right? He's a mentor. He teaches Aladdin a lot. He gives him these gifts, these 3 wishes. And so he's the morale. He's like, don't give up, man. Al, you got it. And so he's encouraging Aladdin the whole time. He's like a mentor to him, teaching him, guiding him, being his conscience, telling him what's right, what's wrong. But he's also an ally because he just has a lot of abilities that help Aladdin, right? But primarily, I might put him in the mentor category. Maybe an ally. Now this, what I'm showing you, is Harry Potter getting his letter from Hogwarts. Can you identify what him getting his letter from Hogwarts is? The fact that it's not a person might have told you it's the Herald. It's what kicks off the adventure. Heimdall, from the Thor movies and other Marvel movies. See if you can figure him out. If you guessed Guardian, you're correct. He's a very archetypal example of this archetype. Heimdall literally just guards the way to Asgard. No pun intended. He controls who goes in and who goes out, and if you don't have the right skills or the right motivations, right, he just won't let you. This guy, whatever his name is, from Frozen, he's the prince who loves Anna, I think. Sorry, I'm not a Frozen expert. But this guy, right, it was a surprise in the movie when he turned out to be the bad guy. He's a shapeshifter. You don't know whose side he's really on. He's a shapeshifter, but not in the mysterious, tense way where you want to figure it out. It's more like it's just a twist with this one, if I remember correctly, right? Where he seems like a pretty good guy, but suddenly he just turns into a bad guy. But he would be a shapeshifter archetype. So keep this in mind. It's about roles. It's not just about who you are, what people there are, right? Characters can change archetypes. They can embody multiple as a mentor / ally, as a hero even / ally. If there's more than one hero, Luke, Han, I don't know. So as you read, you look for the rules. Don't just look for, don't skip right to the archetype part, but say which archetype rules are they following. And I'm going to look for those, and that will help me figure out what's going on here. And if these rules apply, a lot of these rules have to do with what happens later in a story. So that should also help you understand that if this person is that archetype, then this other thing must happen later in the book, and I can make some good predictions. I hope this is helpful. Here's my face. If you have questions or need help understanding this crap, let me know. Come talk to me. Otherwise, see you soon.